myself as much time as I may consume. I believe I made it very clear that this bill is deeply flawed from concept to execution. And while I really do hesitate to improve a bad bill, I think it's important that we acknowledge one of the bill's starkest omissions. My amendment would simply require that while developing the plan this bill proposes, the relevant secretaries also develop a plan to consult with tribal governments. This is particularly important as the bill could open up an additional 300 million acres of new oil and gas extraction on public lands. If we really intend to give away an area 3 times the size of California to big oil, we need to understand the impact it will have on communities across the West, starting with those who have stewarded these lands since time immemorial. It is essential that the secretaries fully and meaningfully consult with tribal governments to understand the impact of this extractive development would have on tribal communities, from damaging air and water to destroying sacred sites. For too long, tribal governments have been excluded from federal decision-making processes. We have seen the impact of that omission as homelands are degraded, sacred sites destroyed, tribal communities are forced to bear the brunt of pollution. No more a more important example is the uranium contamination that continues, and the cleanup of uranium contamination that continues in and around the Grand Canyon and Navajo Nation, and that has affected that community and the Navajo people for generations. It is unacceptable that we would turn a blind eye to these impacts. Tribal governments need to be at the table from the start, helping to shape decisions that impact their communities and their ancestral lands. This amendment would ensure that they do just that, while helping to uphold the federal government's trust responsibility. This shouldn't be controversial. In fact, this should have been built in from the start. I encourage my colleagues to vote yes on the amendment and yield back.
Gentleman yields back his time. Gentleman from Michigan.